When I originally had the idea for the most expensive JoJo's Bizarre Adventure game, I planned on it being JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle, with all of its DLC characters and the already steeply priced physical version on eBay. But with the re-release / remaster of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle R, it kinda just seemed pointless, and the fact that it ended up not being the most expensive JoJo's Bizarre Adventure game. But oh, don't worry, because lucky for me, I found the wallet cremator. Expensive games aren't out of the ordinary to collectors or even the average gamer, seeing as modern prices on new game releases are a whole whopping $70. So how about $90 or even $120 pre-orders? These prices are nothing compared to this game. Everyone, let's talk about the most expensive JoJo's Bizarre Adventure game, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure: Heritage for the Future. So, some of you might know this game as JoJo's Venture, seeing as the game had different releases under different names and on a few different consoles, originally dropping on arcade machines in the US and Japan, all the way in the far back year of 1998! This medicine cabinet from Capcom got a revision in September of 1999, adding 8 new characters and no longer going by JoJo's Venture, donning its new name, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, or JoJo's Bizarre Adventure: Heritage for the Future. Because if there's one thing that a Joestar and anybody who gets close to one has, it's a long, happy, and fruitful future. Releasing halfway through the year 2000 and somehow surviving Y2K. Our Game of the Hour made its new release on home consoles through the Sega Dreamcast and the PlayStation, both games being the same, yet different in semi-major ways. One of the main things that separates the PlayStation port from the arcade game and Dreamcast version is the addition of a story mode called, well, Super Story Mode. It's like a regular story mode, just super. Now, the Dreamcast port is the most unique of the arcade version and the PlayStation port. Upon booting up the game on the Sega Dreamcast, it allows you to choose between which versions of the games you'd rather play. The original arcade version, JoJo's Venture, or the revision, Heritage for the Future, aka JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. We then get a sweet revised intro to the game featuring a whole horse reveal at the start rather than Dio.
I'm the biggest bird.
Oh, whole horse, you charming little gunslinger. At the main menu, the first thing we have is Arcade, which is what a majority of this video will be. Versus, which lets you select your character of choice and have your character's imaginary friends slap each other around while you watch. Training, which lets you get closer to said imaginary friend's spirit and learn to be better at commanding him around. Kinda like Pokemon. Now that we touched bases on all the game modes, let's take a bite out of the arcade. Once you select it, you're greeted by Darby and oh, it's his kitty! There's challenge mode and story. Challenge mode is like your standard arcade ladder. Pick your character and see how far you can get without tearing your controller in half. The story mode is similar, letting you pick your preferred character and follow their respective journey through part 3 without tearing your controller in half, but this time having some cutscenes. Because I'm basic, we'll be playing through Jotaro's story ladder. It follows the story fairly well, starting out in his jail cell and Joseph having Avdol force him out. Next is Kakyoin and the Hierophant Green, where Kakyoin vows to destroy us after we catch him playing with dolls?
Oh shit!
This was the hardest fight through Jotaro's story. Or maybe the rest seemed easier because this fight made me put on an infinite health cheat code, but that's besides the point. We then proceed to prove that no one can dodge the Emerald Splash about 12 times. And finally tear the mind control calamari from Kakyoin's head.
Nice.
The difficulty spike between Avdol and Kakyoin was huge, but not big enough to stop this 6'5" 17-year-old. Continuing the story, Jotaro's mother Holly develops a stand of her own. The stand, however, makes her deathly ill. Desperate to save his mother, Jotaro asks his grandfather Joseph what they need to do to save her, with Joseph telling him they need to defeat Dio, and in doing so will stop the stand from killing her, but they only have 50 days to do it. Joseph uses his stand Hermit Purple to find Dio's location in Egypt, and with Kakyoin joining them, they're off to stop Dio. Aww, this ought to be a fun and carefree adventure. Arriving in Singapore, Jotaro, sensing an evil intent in his room from a man named Devo, begins to cook his ass al dente. However, it's revealed that Devo's stand ability lets him possess inanimate objects to attack his enemies, cursing them after they've effectively damaged him. Lame! Jotaro bends Papa Geppetto and his possessed puppet over his knee and then heads out to his next stop in Egypt. After another safe landing, Polnareff, When did you get here? Joseph tells his group of crusaders they're waiting on their new teammate who should be arriving at any minute. With Iggy arriving, our party is full, and right as everyone becomes acclimated with each other, blasts of water fire down at them as they're attacked from a distance by our new enemy Endol, who has the ability to control the shape and density of water from a distance. So now we have a really fun minigame of sorts where you need to close the distance between you and Endol as fast as you can while dodging his water-based attacks before your health expires. Water in the desert? What's the most water can do in this dry-ass desert? You might as well be fighting with a super soaker. After closing the distance and punching a blind man in the face, JoJo berates him on the ground after knocking him out, deciding to save some of his anger until later for that one special person. His mom. Parallel parking in between Luxor and Aswan, JoJo meets a man who appears to have studied the art of the blade who goes by the name Chaka. Both men a few words begin fighting while assumingly never breaking eye contact with each other. What the game doesn't explain here is that the sword this man is carrying is a userless stand named Anubis who controls whoever draws the blade, with its original stand user being a man named Caravanserai. After his passing, Anubis bonded with the sword itself, making him a userless stand. Upon defeating Chaka, we're alerted to a new fighter approaching, that being Death 13. However, you all may know him from Kakyoin saying,
I really don't care that you're a baby. I'll snap your neck like a twig.
Now this fight isn't difficult, the only difficult thing here being that this ICP wannabe won't stop floating away from us! After ripping the Hatchet Man necklace out from around Death 13's neck, effectively removing any Juggalo's power, we defeat him. Heading north to Luxor. Jotaro's daily brooding session about the sea and its marine life is interrupted by a man falling from a window behind him, which Jotaro finds peculiar. With such a bizarre feat, Jotaro deduces that this man is the new enemy stand user named Alessi. Attaboy! A fight ensues between the two as Alessi reveals his stand, who oddly resembles a Pikmin. Defeating Alessi and finally arriving in Cairo, they find Dio's mansion and decide to break off into two groups in order to cover more ground. Yeah, we all know how that goes. Kakyoin, Joseph, and Jotaro arrive in a room full of destruction, coming to the conclusion that Avdol's group ran into trouble, right as the new enemy stand user Vanilla Ice arrives, peeving Jotaro off.
You pissed me off.
A battle ensues as we watch Vanilla Ice eat his own head to disappear. Okay, now I've seen everything. Vanilla Ice, being a vampire himself, was pushed into the sunlight by Jotaro, turning him to dust, defeating him. Polnareff arrives with one of Dio's minions, who they use to lead them right into Dio's chambers. Sensing something is wrong as Dio's minions open his coffin, the gang dives out of the mansion and into the streets of Cairo, as Dio is now awake from his slumber and ready to do Dio stuff, like ending bloodlines and starting cults. Jotaro and Joseph regroup, unable to find Kakyoin but running into Dio. Joseph insists Jotaro stays back, however Dio makes quick work of Joseph using his stand the world's ability to stop time. With Joseph out of commission and Dio revealing he's taking care of Kakyoin, we prepare for our final showdown against this suave-ass vampire. This fight may be the most iconic in the JoJo's universe. Let's be honest, when you hear the name JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I feel like 9 out of 10 of you imagine these two right here. And for an iconic fight, the difficulty matched it. Did I mention I'm not the best at fighting games? Thank God for the Game Shark! After the first round against Dio, he's knocked off screen as Jotaro follows. We find him on a bridge, sucking the blood from Joseph, bonding himself with the body of Jotaro's great-grandfather Jonathan Joestar, becoming stronger than he was before. With an enraged Jotaro on his hands, the final battle begins against Dio's newfound power. The two wage war against each other once more on the bridge, with Jotaro using his veteran Souls-like parrying skills to stop an attack from Dio, which ends up doing him in. A defeated Dio flies off screen once again, as Jotaro reveals to him that Dio lost because he pissed him off. Jotaro's grandfather Joseph is taken to an ambulance and is saved by a blood transfusion, as they take the remains of Dio out into the sunlight, reducing what's left of him to ash as they pay homage to the friends they lost on their journey. Cutting to the airport where Joseph and Jotaro plan to return back to Japan, they have a heartfelt goodbye with Polnareff as they go their separate ways, saving Jotaro's mother Holly and ending Dio's long reign of terror. Everyone, that was JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Heritage for the Future. Now, if my info is correct, this was the first JoJo game that was released in the States, which is a great start because this game rocks. It was hard deciding which version of the game I play, seeing as the PlayStation version has a much more fleshed out story, and from what I hear, playing it on Fightcade is spectacular. But I wanted to own this expensive-ass game physically and needed some validation of my recent purchase of a Sega Dreamcast besides Sword of the Berserk. With Capcom's beautiful sprite work resembling Marvel vs. Capcom and Darkstalkers, a great soundtrack, and super fun gameplay, like adding the ability to summon your stand whenever you please, is so rad. Apparently there's even more secret characters to unlock, like Young Joseph and Shadow Dio. I suppose I understand why the game's so expensive, but then at the same time I don't. Especially seeing as getting a complete US Dreamcast version will run you at least $200. Do I think it's worth the money? Nope, not at all. Am I glad I got to experience this game? Oh hell yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. And as always, thanks for watching.